our sponsors who have pretty much been the main reason we have been able to move forward with this conference, other than the attendance participation. So thank you to iOffice, Tate, Clark Nexon, Breather, Notel, Office Freedom, St. Gobain and Certainty, Tango, AVI, SPL, MCS, Hayworth, Plantronics, Envoy, Triple Play and Diversified, Ambius, ProxyClick, Robin, Iotium, Veldhoven, FM Systems, Convene, Woodalls, Gantner, Sennheiser, Human Scale, Lone Rooftop, Oh My Green, Density, Comfy, Aware, HLW, and Cobalt. Please give a warm applause and welcome for our sponsors for this year. This evening, post the event, we do have a cocktail reception. We have classified it as our not safe for work cocktail reception, which will be starting around 6:15, 6:30, which will be hosted by Office Freedom. So please stay around for the end of the day to have some drinks on us. Now, to get started, I would like to introduce two folks from Cigna, Sanjiv Awasthi and Matthew Morris. They will be talking about Cigna's journey from a traditional to activity-based workplace. So please give a warm welcome to the Cigna team.
Guess we're sharing a mic.
It's okay.
There you go. Okay.
It's okay.
All right, well, welcome everyone to Future Offices. We had a great day yesterday doing a lot of workshops. For those of you that were there, we learned a lot of great things. Specifically, some of the things that stood out to me was the difference between wellness and well-being and equity versus equality. There's a lot of good conversation around those topics, and it was a great thing. And we're excited to be here as part of the Future Offices Conference 2019. I'm Matt Morris. I lead the execution of all real estate projects within Cigna, both domestic and international. That's everything from strategy, transaction management, planning, change management, design, construction. And my partner in crime here, Sanjiv Awasthi, is the global head of real estate for Cigna. And beyond working at Cigna, he's worked at several other Fortune 500 companies, including Time Warner, Pfizer, and Fidelity. And when Sanjiv and I attended this conference, I think it was January of last year here in New York, we learned a lot. There was a lot of great topics. There was a lot of sessions about the workplace experience and the importance of that, change management, and activity-based working. And over the last year, we've worked to implement a lot of those concepts into our portfolio, and we want to share our perspective and kind of story with the backdrop of our headquarters renovation and how we've implemented some of those things here today. So to kind of set the story, the way we went about this kind of renovation is we want to give you a quick overview of the company, who Cigna is. Then we want to talk about the building and really the canvas in which we were working with. Then talk a little bit about our workforce and the studies and surveys that we did to really understand how they were working and how that may be relevant to all of you working on similar type projects. And then lastly, and all along the way, we'll highlight some of the lessons learned in this process. So first, the company. Quick overview. Cigna is a global health service company. If you ever call it an insurance company, you will be corrected. I've made that mistake, and CEO corrected me. We are a global health service company. We offer pharmacy, health, dental, supplemental insurance, and Medicare plans to individuals, families, and businesses. But more recently, Cigna has also become a data company. And it's really using data to predict and to prevent health issues before they transpire. A few kind of quick facts. With the recent acquisition of Express Scripts, Who's familiar with that acquisition, Cigna and Express Scripts? Yeah, quite a few of you. That's great. That closed just before Christmas. Not a great time to close a deal, but it happened just the week before Christmas, and that kind of set us on a pretty long path over the last few months. But it also catapulted us from being a Fortune 70 company to a Fortune 20, 25 company. I've heard as high as Fortune 12. I think that still remains to be seen. But pretty large company with 70,000 employees in 30 different countries and a real estate portfolio of about 13 million square feet. And just kind of one interesting fact about Cigna I think is really interesting. It was established in 1792 as a submarine insurance company, right? Submarine insurance, that's where it started. And it's the second oldest company on the Fortune 500. It's older than JP Morgan Chase, it's older than DuPont. The only company that's older is BNY Mellon, which was founded by Alexander Hamilton. So for those of you in New York and have seen that play, it's kind of interesting. So that's a little bit about the company. I'm going to turn it over to Sanjiv. He's going to talk a little bit more about the building, and then we'll come to the workforce.
Sure. You just go to the next slide, Matt. So I think one of the things that's interesting about Cigna is, as Matt mentioned, it's a fairly old company, but it continues to transform itself and continues to adapt to the environment and the clients and the customers' needs throughout their journey. And one of the things we wanted to highlight is our headquarters building is in Bloomfield, Connecticut. I don't know how many people have ever been to Bloomfield, Connecticut, but it is a building it's listed in the Federal Historical Building as one of the first suburban office buildings in the U.S. And it is a building that is from 1957. And in 1957, it was a very progressive building. And what we wanted to kind of highlight is all the concepts that we hear about today were embedded in this building in 1957. So what was old now is new again. So three big things that we hear constantly in our view of what's happening in the environment today is we hear about wellness. It's a big trend. We heard about it a little bit yesterday. And this building was actually designed to be a wellness building. And that's one of the ethos of the company. We're a wellness company, and that was embedded in 1957 into this building. There are walking tracks. It was intentionally picked to be in a place that's surrounded by a golf course, and there are walking tracks. There are all kinds of amenities also built into the space. You know, if you think Google is providing all kinds of amenities, this building had a bowling alley, a gas station. It had and spend the majority of their day working there and feel like the company is taking care of them and addressing their needs. So had wellness, it had amenities. The third thing it was designed to be, and actually was referenced at the time, was an activity-based neighborhood building. It's a massive building. It's almost 1 million square feet and on 3 floors. And the building was intentionally designed to have an open layout, but with different breakout areas for people to do work in collaborative mode and also in a way to get privacy throughout their day. So we're now talking about activity-based workspaces, and this in 1957 had that. So the journey that we went through in 1957 has evolved, and one of the things that was surprising to us is, and I think we're going to play a little video just to bring you nostalgia, it's also the first building that Florence Knoll ever designed furniture and finishes for in her career. So very progressive building, and all those concepts are what we're trying to bring back into the building to reflect where the workplace is today. So we'll play a little video just to give you a sense of how progressive it was at its time.
Yeah, it's a short.
See, as the narrator said, there was a lot of focus on open layouts, a lot of focus on natural light, massive windows. That structure the exterior of that structure is exactly the same today. If you go there today, it will look exactly the same. The only thing that is different, which Matt will talk about, why we are now thinking about bringing it back to its legacy is the journey we have gone through the last year.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And just one additional point that Sanjiv talked about the amenities, right? The amenities that were in the existing building and what amenities we really wanted for the future of the space. And so we really wanted to make sure that the amenities that we would provide moving forward are really tied to the mission, right? There are a lot of amenities that you can provide, and this building really lends itself to doing that. But we really had to be selective in which ones were ultimately a part of that program. And so we went through a pretty significant exercise to identify what made the most sense, and a lot of them came down to the mission of the company, which is a health and wellness company. And so there is a clinic on site. You can meet with your doctor, you can meet with a nurse, you can get blood tests, you can do physical therapy. You know, you have some of the standard amenities of fitness centers and other things as well. But a lot of them were centered around that wellness and well-being component. You can get a massage, you can do all those types of things. So after we understood the company, after we understood a little bit more about the history of the building, we really wanted to understand the workplace and the workforce in a little more detail. So what we did is through surveys and visioning sessions and focus groups, we identified 3 overarching reasons why the building was not supporting the employees and how they work today. To be quite honest, there were probably a lot more than that. A lot more than that. 3 was kind of a good soundbite that we could take to the executive leadership team to give them something to think about, you know, really, really quickly. And the first one is what you see up here is a 54% utilization rate. I don't know what you guys see. You know, for most of the peers and others we speak to, a 50 to 60% utilization rate is actually quite common. It's something that I think a lot of companies are struggling with, but a lot of empty desks and offices at this location. And with a 54% utilization rate, and Sanjiv mentioned it's almost 1 million square feet, you can kind of do the math on how much square footage is kind of left on the table and needs to be utilized better. The second was it was disconnected. If you could find a conference room, chances are it didn't have great technology to support it. And if it did have technology, it was probably different than the last conference room you were in, and so you didn't know how to use it. So that was a big challenge for us as well in partnering with IT to make sure that we design our conference rooms to be consistent, to be simple, to be easy. And lastly, it was void of natural light. I think there are many in the audience that can talk about all of the recent studies and surveys about the importance of natural light on productivity and health and wellness as it relates to the workplace. But somewhere along the way, somewhere between 1957 and today, perimeter offices were built. And that pastoral setting that Sanjiv mentioned, it was on 600-acre campus of greenery, which was very intentional and sits on an 18-hole par 72 golf course. Not that I've played it that much, but it sits on this great setting, and just nobody could take in the expansive nature of those views. So those were the 3 that we kind of highlighted for senior management, and so then we studied our workforce. We studied our workforce and really wanted to, and I want to share just kind of some of the survey results that we got as we worked through this process. First, we studied various types of spaces to get an accurate assessment of how the building was currently being used, and looked at how that was compared to what was important to our employees. And what you start to see is the gap of what's important to employees and how satisfied they are with those things. What stands out to me here is, I guess, the big ticket items that our employees really cared about. Speech privacy was huge.
Just Matt, on
Yeah.
the speech privacy, I think one of the things that we really were trying to dig into is, I assume a lot of people that have migrated to open layouts and open plans hear that constant theme over and over again. And what you start realizing is what the employees are really talking about is not just like, hey, I can't, people can hear my conversation, I don't have any privacy. What they're really concerned about is work privacy. They are concerned that other employees can see what they're doing on their machines. That's what they're really concerned about. When they had the cubes and the high cubes, they realized that their conversations could be heard, but they also realized their content couldn't be seen by others. And that's what they're much more concerned about, is content privacy as opposed to speech privacy. So they'll say it's speech privacy, but when you really start having conversations with them, it's about content privacy so that people have an ability to think that their content isn't being compromised with others. So that's, I think, the lesson learned from our side is how do you arrange your neighborhoods, your plans to make sure that there is more content privacy going on.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of kind of evolution in how you solve for the audio privacy, whether it's white noise or, acoustical ceiling tiles or whatever it is. But that kind of work privacy, I think, is still being solved for, maybe in the smaller neighborhoods and other type things. But I think that definitely stood out, was the speech privacy, and that was lacking today. Meeting room reservation systems, just ability to quickly find a conference room that worked for them. Access to views of outdoors. We hear a lot about, the biophilia and bringing the outside in. That ranked pretty high. And then just the ability to locate the colleagues. I think over 40% of our employees before we started this renovation didn't sit with their teams. And business unit adjacencies, making sure that we studied that and understood that very well was very important to them. The next survey that we did was really to study what types of spaces our employees were interested in, what would best support them both from a concentration perspective and a collaboration perspective. So for focus or concentration, employees were mostly interested in semi-enclosed personal booth spaces. Who's been doing personal booth spaces? Just a few of you. It seems like everybody loves them. I mean, we've had nothing but great positive feedback for these. If you provide a little bit of an enclosure and some perceived privacy, they are always used. So personal booth spaces, small meeting room spaces, a library-like setting, or a private phone room where for concentration spaces ranked highly. For collaboration and interaction, the employees were most interested in, again, small meeting room spaces, dedicated project rooms, and creative team rooms. I've also heard the term like innovation rooms, where you can have a dedicated project going on for 6 months, or it can serve a variety of different purposes. So we use this information to inform not only our collaboration ratios in our overall design, but getting the right proportions of these spaces into each neighborhood and within each business unit. And it really helped us see the need, again, for variety and choice, and clued us in that this activity-based working is really, there's something to it. So
I think that was one of the major kind of shifts that we had. So the company, over its history, has always been a one-to-one. Every employee had a workspace, and as we were migrating to more of a hybrid model, it was very important for us to get this right, because I think the perception they had is, hey, it's going to be a sea of workstations, and we went out of our way to try to inform them that it won't be a sea of workstations. It will be more of a neighborhood concept with those areas that they were really craving for, which we really didn't have in the building. We didn't have collaborative areas. We didn't have technology-enabled conference areas. All the things they were yearning for is what they really were looking for, and that's the main reason they were actually wanting to come to the office. They weren't coming to the office to do heads-down work, which is what the building was designed and is today. It's more to do the other things that they feel would allow them to be more interactive with the employee, even if they were just within their team or beyond their teams. And the other thing about Cigna is Cigna, probably over the last 6 years, has become incredibly remote. So even our senior leadership doesn't sit in Connecticut, right? We're challenged with the location that we're sitting in. So the Cigna has intentionally hired people where they are and are looking for the best in talent, and realize that the vast majority of people aren't physically sitting there, but they need to interact with them across the country. And that's why those rooms really were resonating with the employee base, and why we shifted to more of an activity-based type of setting.
Yeah. So the next survey question is, we were just like really explicit. We were just trying to understand is there an appetite to work in other environments? And we asked them and broke it down by business unit. The good news was 60% of our employees were very likely or likely to want to work in other environments other than at their desk. No surprise, certain business units like legal or finance or HR, less likely to be inclined to use those types of spaces. Those individuals or those business units that are really do heads down, focus type work, had a slightly lesser appetite for alternative-based working concepts. And we use that to kind of just help support the individual programming of each neighborhood and for each business unit. So one thing we didn't point out is what we also found was that our employees that came into the office like 1 day a week or were full-time work at home, they felt they were more productive. They felt they had less distraction. They felt that they could get to more emails. They felt they could move their projects further along when they were not in the office very much. I think that may be somewhat circumstantial if you have small kids at home or other distractions at home, but I think for the large part, they felt more productive when they were in that type of an arrangement. We also found that employees that came into the office 3 to 4 days a week, kind of that middle ground, found greater contentment, greater happiness. They felt like they had this, better kind of connection of work-life balance and were really content with how they were working. And then the employees that were required or otherwise came in 4 to 5 days a week, our agile teams, our product teams, business units that needed to be there, to be with their business units, to be in the same room, to be in the innovation rooms, they felt they were more innovative. So it was kind of interesting to see that depending on, what type of function you were, it really depended on how many days in the office you were each week. So just to kind of recap, we knew the company, we felt like we knew the building pretty well, we knew the workforce pretty well, so we set out to create a space policy that would allow them to experience the space on their own terms. And we used just a couple of filters. We still have some hierarchical things that are in our company, so banding just couldn't possibly go away. So we used banding for some as a delineation, and then also the utilization to really allow employees to experience it how they were and how it would best support them and their job function.
And when we were doing this, one of the big things we did, and I think one of the lessons we learned last time we were here at this conference, is partnering with HR and IT. So HR is a major partner. We use a lot of the terminology HR uses in our workplace experience. So we're trying to tie the employee and the workplace experience together. And that's why the company just rolled out a newer career architecture for all the employees in the company, and we wanted to mirror that as we were trying to create a space policy that will not only be aligned to it, but also help enforce the standards that we were trying to do from a space policy side. So that partnership was one of the key partnerships that enabled us to get senior leadership buy-in that, hey, we're trying to work together to create policies that are consistent across the company.
Yeah. And we call this kind of this mix of having some of the employees with an assigned and some of them unassigned, or having a fixed worker profile or a flex worker profile is kind of like a hybrid mobility approach. We weren't quite ready to go all the way to the full mobility, and so the hybrid mobility really seemed to speak and resonate with all of our employees. So just to kind of recap some of the lessons learned.
Yeah, I think this is our closing slide, and I want to stress that this is a long journey, right? It took us almost a year to get to where we are, and we're right now in pilot phase. So we are piloting all these concepts with 4 very different parts of the company to see what kind of feedback we're going to get, because it would be really dangerous to rebuild and modify 1 million square feet without getting some feedback of, hey, here's what you told us, here's an environment you can test and learn, and give us feedback of what to do. I would say one of the biggest things, and we can't stress this enough, is change management. And it is an area, especially given what we're trying to do, that you need to educate the employee base, whether it is getting their feedback, or actually telling them how to use the new environments you're putting into place. It is critical, and now almost every build-out we do across the country, we give them a welcome packet where they know exactly why we did it, because they're usually going like, why did real estate put all this new stuff? I have no idea what they were trying to do. It gives them also an ability to engage with us to tell us how we can help and make sure the things we were hoping to have happen actually happen at the site. We're very focused on cost. We are a cost-focused company, just like most companies are, and we've put in value engineering rhythms into our process so that we are always looking at cost as one of the drivers. I would say this idea of technology is really important. Most of our employees are looking for simple and easy. That is by far the #1 ask they had from us is, hey, if you're going to put technology in, God, I don't want to memorize 18 different passcodes. I don't want to be figuring out which cable to plug here, which not to plug. They want it to be simple and easy. And we are now teaming with our IT organization and our IT vendor to try to make it as seamless and easy for them to use, and that is something that we're striving to do as more and more technology is getting embedded in the workplaces. I would say the last issue I really want to talk about is in terms of partnerships. We talked about HR, we talked about IT, but we also partner with what in Cigna we call them member services, security, food services. All these things are really critical. And one of the things that we are going to pilot when we do our pilot spade is a concierge type service. So employees who aren't going to be there as frequently, or employees in general, want those issues to be resolved and they want to be able to go to a concierge. A lot of companies have started that with IT help desk. We are trying to do that on a real estate side to help the employees who are coming there navigate the space easier, have some of their key things done easier, so that they're not constantly looking for, they're really focused on work and not constantly trying to manage the space itself. So those are some of the fundamental highlights that hopefully lessons learned that you guys can keep in mind as you might want to start this journey in your organizations.
So that is all we had.
Questions or things you want to hear more about? Sure. So I would say our age metric actually went up in age, not down in age. So our average age is 44 years old in the company. And I think one of the things that we're trying to balance is the company itself. The way you should think about the company is a third, a third, and a third. A third of our work is done work at home, completely work at home. So there is a third of our employee base that work from home every single day. And that's because of technology enables them to have real-time feedback loops. A third of our employee base are outsourced partners. And that's probably where a large number of our younger population, so we're not, and the third that are physically designated to an office are usually now older, and usually the ones who need to be in the office to do their work. So a lot of the entry jobs and the lower focused jobs are really done either work at home or outsourced. So that's kind of driving the actual age group up. We definitely are thinking about multi-generational in our spaces. We just redid our cafe area prior to us. So we redid our amenity spaces before we tackled the workspaces, and we put in a working cafe. We gave a patio that they can use for 6 months. It's beautifully done. It's not, and so we addressed the things they were looking for. They were looking for more services that allow them to interact quickly to get rid of their services. So we put in an IT desk. We have a community area where they can definitely get engaged with the community. Cigna encourages that. So yes, we're thinking about them, but we're not facing that challenge as much as other companies are today because of the way our demographics are and how we have transformed the workforce over the last 6 years.
I think just one other kind of demographic study and other things that we've kind of had to adjust to is our company is about 72% female. And so we've, tried to look at, different ways in which we can, really cater to that audience, whether it's more mother's rooms or wellness rooms or other things, just kind of little things that kind of cater to the audience, both from a female perspective. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
It sounds like you've done a pretty extensive data gathering and workplace strategy type process. Were there any particular methods, softwares, vendors that you used to collect that data?
I would say yes. So I would say what we did, it started with this conference. We spent a lot of time talking to different experts in the field, right? We got we got nervous because we started hearing certain themes, and we thought, hey, maybe these themes won't resonate with our employee base as well. And that's why we did a lot of surveys initially. We then realized that change management is really important, and we did engage an outside firm to do change management to help us through that journey. And we also heard from a lot of our vendors who are going to help support this transformation to help us pilot different elements that we said, hey, we don't know whether this will resonate or not, but we are going to at least experiment with it. And we are now in the midst of doing that pilot execution in the next 4 weeks. But I think what I would encourage you is first try to find out as much as possible from as many different sources. And we also reached out to a lot of our peer groups, both in the market and others that are not in the market, to kind of understand what did they learn, what resonated with their employees, and the employees, and we were also trying to look at functional things. As Matt said, different things benefit different parts of the company. We're not all data. We are very traditional company in certain sense and very progressive in other sense. So we're trying to balance those things. I would say reach out, do surveys, and we did it internally through our own methods. We do surveys in other places, and then try to understand like what are the employees really doing, pilot, and then make sure you have change management, whether it's a small scale or big scale, because the employees are misinterpreting your mission and have like, oh, they're trying to save costs or they're trying to send me to work at home. And we spend a lot of time, we've done town halls with the employee base, helping them understand that we're really trying to address their needs. It's not a real estate exercise, it's an employee exercise.
Yeah, and just to kind of further one more point, it was a really good question. This is all of kind of like the pre-work, right? This is all of the surveys, shadowing, visioning. Our pilot space, that helped us kind of create an idea of what a pilot space could be. And so then we designed the pilot space, and we plan on using, further surveys. We plan on using shadowing sessions and kind of observation studies, and also using sensors and probably some heat mapping as well to kind of really drive, to learn more about how they experience the pilot space before we launch into phase 1. Other questions?
Spoke a little bit about private offices and workstations in the pilot program. Are there any meeting spaces or collaboration spaces included in the pilot?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I'm not sure. Could you?
I'm sorry. Collaborative meeting areas and. So
yeah. I mean, go ahead. I mean, yeah, we have. We wanted to try a variety of different workstation types just to see, again, which resonated with the employees. So we created neighborhoods with all different components. The ceiling grids were different. The workstations were different. The collaboration rooms were different. We did all shapes and sizes. You did focus groups, kind of the two-person capacity rooms, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 8 to 12, and we tried a variety of different environments. And we're gonna track all of those with sensors. We're gonna kind of triangulate with the sensors to see which ones did they actually use, which ones did they say they used through the surveys, and really try and triangulate onto what was the most popular.
I think one of the big things that we're experimenting. So given the culture of the company, the culture of the company is they get very nervous when they're sitting in open areas or when people are observing them working. I think other companies have similar things. The employees might not say it, but when you give soft seating, the perception, even though they might be really working on a laptop or other things, it's a skewed perception. As the age dynamics, I think a gentleman asked before, as the age dynamics get younger, they're more comfortable doing that. The older generation is less comfortable sitting in a wide open space. So one of the things we're experimenting is we call it a social hub. It's a working area. So right now in the building, there are no pantries, right? So 4,400 people, no pantries, no sink, nothing, right? That's what the company is used to. That's the employee base is used to. It's going to be a shock to them. Hey, we're actually going to give you a pantry in an area where you can actually socialize and interact with your colleagues and have lunch together. We don't know how that's going to resonate yet with the employee base. That is a major shift in the way the culture of the company thinks today. Great question. I would say the thought process that we have is the company used to have different sizes, different things for different people, right? We are trying to gravitate. We have one single workstation, and the office layout, it can be converted into a conference room, a huddle room, or a video conference room. They're exactly the same footprint. So they have flexibility. And one of the things that we are trying to do is balance this idea of forcing something on the neighborhood and giving them some choice. So what we are going to tell them is, based on what we think you need, here is what we're going to give you, and then you can decide what components go in the neighborhood. It's very easy for us to say, okay, we're going to give you 3 huddle rooms because that's really what you want. Another area might say, hey, most of our colleagues are remote, and we're going to give you more video conferencing area. But the footprint is the same, and a lot of the components in those spaces are similar.
Okay.
No. I think it's an idea, it's a premium, and I think what we've learned is that most companies don't really change them that much, that you're just much better off giving similar sizes and having the components inside the room have variability and change.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.